and welcome to the debate. I'm your host, Maqbool, with you at BTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to the recent decision coming in from the U.S. with regards to sanctions on Pakistan's ballistic missile capability. And this is, of course, something that has unfortunately come against the NDC and three other commercial entities. And we've seen that this has happened before as well. And in terms of the way forward and the ways in which these particular decisions and measures are actually taken need to be understood and, of course, put forward. What impact does that create, of course, for regional peace and stability, and of course on Pakistan's strategic assets, and then of course with regards to our relationship with the US are very essential to what is going to be the approach and way ahead as we deal with this, and how, of course, historically this has been something that Pakistan has dealt with in the past as well, despite being an important ally of the US. Next, we're going to be taking a look at what is going on in Kurram agency, and we've seen, unfortunately, that a number of people have lost their lives in violent clashes, and this is something that, of course, was discussed within the Apex Committee of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and these decisions were taken with regards to what really lies ahead and what sort of measures, including the removal of bunkers, will actually contribute to peace and stability in the region. Whether or not that is the case and how exactly will control of weapons be also executed is something that, of course, remains to be seen, and we'll discuss that in further detail in the second segment of the show today. For this and more, as always in the studios, I've been joined by Senior Analyst Faisal. We've also been joined in the studios by Defence Analyst Syed Ali, and also we've been joined online by Naval Commander retired Babar Bilal, who's a security analyst. Thank you very much, Bilal Sab, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. And Ali Sab, I'm going to start with you with reference to what we have seen going on and the decision that has been taken by the US. We've seen it before, and we have talked about how the rationale behind it is by the Foreign Office, of course, has put forward its own statement, and how damaging it can be to the interests of the country and, of course, our strategic assets. Why do these decisions even come with the US while we enjoy a working relationship with the country, and what basis or rationale exists when we talk about these decisions, where many times before a lack of evidence has also been pointed out by Pakistan?
Thank you for having me on the show, Sana. I think there are several reasons which explain this unthoughtful action in the last few days of the Biden administration. The first is the US domestic politics, and it seems that not just this particular issue, but on all important issues affecting US policy, you are witnessing, it seems that the outgoing Biden administration is laying a minefield on all policy issues for the incoming Trump administration. And because they are expecting that Trump administration will undo all major policy decisions on all issues that the Biden administration is taking. Secondly, this is a junior officer, is a young man, Deputy National Security Advisor, and he'll be out of job in a few weeks. And definitely, like Mr. Khalilzad, he'll be looking for job in 1 month's time. And this particular speech indicates that he's offering his CV to the Indian lobby in order to offer his services for pressurizing Pakistan in a future think tank position inside the Beltway. So we should take this in that context. Now, if you come to the strategic and technical realities, there obviously such allegations are divorced from the technical and strategic realities, because Pakistan's strategic program is primarily aimed at preserving peace and security in this region and maintaining strategic stability against a possible attack from any form or type from India. And it does not, and Pakistan, like you rightly pointed out, has no incentive to threaten the very country which offers Pakistan its largest export market. Pakistan values the US goodwill for securing relief from international financial institutions. Pakistan has a very vibrant diaspora which offers foreign exchange remittances to Pakistan. So it will be ridiculous to expect that Pakistan has any incentive or interest in threatening a nuclear attack against the very country on which its economic security depends, unless that there is a country which has a vested interest in harming and undermining, like you rightly pointed out, cordial, close, multidimensional relations between Washington and Islamabad, and that is none other than India.
Right, and Bilal Sahab, I want your take on this as well, because while of course we saw the sanctions coming in, these statements of how these missiles have the capability to reach the US, and outrightly of course pointing out and blaming Pakistan for any such intention, is something that of course is problematic in terms of our relations with the country as well. And of course we can take a look at it from an individualistic point of view, but I want your take on these statements coming in from the US, and what really can Pakistan make of it, and what impact does that create on our dynamic with the US?
Thank you very much. While agreeing with Mr. Muhammad Ali, one of my close friends, I have a take on this on different angles. Probably the outgoing administration is planting, in the naval terms, we call it mines for the incoming government of United States. This sort of decisions, which is a strategic decisions, putting it in the last month or rather last weeks of the government, it speaks of some lobbying within the U.S. Government circles against Pakistan, and that primarily probably the Indian lobby is very active over there, and then they are pushing certain decisions against Pakistan. This has a lot, besides the economic or technical implications for Pakistan. It has a people-to-people, U.S. and Pakistani people, they have some understanding for last 4, 5, 7 years that we are still going towards the normalization of relations. Probably this is against that purpose and that goodwill which has been created in the last few years. This will go against it, and this, minded, these type of sanctions, they are more of a political sanctions, I believe. Otherwise, somebody is pushing Pakistan to the self-reliance. We will have if we want to create some technical advancements or some expertise, we will develop it. So if you put these sort of sanctions, like Iran is under sanction, Russia is under sanction, China is under sanction, Venezuela, North Korea, Pakistan, but the result is same. These sanctions do not bring out any good, except that the country's relations are harmful in next 3 to 4 years. And secondly, once I see this, it is more promoting the Indian hegemony in this area. We are the two nuclear neighbors, and siding with one country is playing with the fire, I believe. Thank you.
Right, and Faisal, I want your take on this as well, particularly in terms of the decision-making process and the timing of this decision as well. And we discussed this yesterday too, but in terms of the way that we have seen this come up, and then of course with the dynamic that Bilal Sahab was also pointing out, how does this then factor in on the relationship that we're hoping to develop under Mr. Trump?
Yeah, Sana, that's a very good question. And if we, talk about Trump, of course, Trump is yet to be in the office, the Oval Office I'm talking about. And when he comes, his policies, how he wants to pursue for India, for Pakistan, for the regional stability, how he deals with China, how he deals with the rest of the world, that would be, of course, seen after he takes the Oval Office. So far, of course, we know that Oval Office was occupied by a puppet of deep state of US. I'm talking about Biden. Biden has always been known to be a puppet president and a puppet politician. He was someone who was always kept in the pocket of deep states and deep pockets. And when it comes to these kind of statements which are coming at an hour when they have lost the elections very miserably, very badly. And to me, only indication I get from this is that they have been, of course, deep state have been pursuing its own policy for Pakistan, its own policy for India as well. We shouldn't be forgetting that not long ago, I think it was July, back in July, the sort of statements which were coming from the US, they were, of course, in the favor of India, in which they have been saying that they wanted to increase or enhance Indian defense capability against China as well as Pakistan, because they believed that India is the billionaire in terms of population that can always deter China rather than any other country in South China Sea. When it comes to East China Sea, we very well know that they have active troops in South Korea, active troops in Japan, and they are pursuing a policy of containing China in East China Sea But at the same time, we know that they haven't had a sort of a tooth to bite anyone out there. If they ever had one, they could have done something about North Korea. They never ever could do anything against North Korea. And when it comes to China itself, forget about China. I mean, they can't do anything about China. Deep state can't do anything about China. And under these circumstances, when we already know that the very first statement after Trump won the election, it was a statement against the deep state, a statement that clearly said that the deep state activities which were taking place in past against him, as well as during the 4 years of Biden regime, they were pursuing their own policy, and the kind of policies they have been implementing in South Asia, against China as well, and Middle East and Europe. Of course, they need to be looked after by of course, the upcoming Trump government. And when they take the office, that's when the real policy of US would be seen. For now, we already know that it meant nothing at this hour. If there was a policy, why didn't they come before? Why have they been waiting for this long? They have been waiting for this long because right after losing the elections, it has actually deep state that lost the election. I won't say that Democrats lost the election. It's the deep state that lost the election in US, and deep state is just coming up with these kind of statements against Pakistan just to justify whatever they have been doing against Pakistan and in the favor of India in recent years. Because they know that their activities, they are under the radars of Trump administration, and when Trump comes, they want to have some kind of justification to justify themselves that is why we have been doing that in past.
Right, but I want to build on that further, and Adi, I want your opinion on that with reference to the ways that we have seen these dynamics take place. And while that may be something that is clear to us in terms of the dynamics that are under play, how does that factor in the ways that Pakistan actually exists in the region, and in the ways that these double standards, so to speak, or whatever decision making or rationale that exists with reference to India or the Middle East or any other region? How then will Pakistan be approaching this as a strategic player within this region, and how then can we really approach the subject when we know that there are other factors that will always define the relationships that the US has with countries like India or Israel?
I think it's a very important question. I think briefly it can be seen at 4 levels. The current dynamic of US domestic politics, which is perhaps the most significant one. The second is the regional security and the US enduring commitment towards balance of power and strategic stability in South Asia. The third is the technical aspect, and the fourth is the strategic the impact on Pakistan's deterrence capability. First off, like I earlier pointed out, I'm not very worried because I have an optimistic view that the Trump will review such policy blunders being made by the outgoing Biden administration, which is laying a minefield on all important international issues for the incoming Trump administration. But I do trust that the incoming the Republicans will review and reconsider these policy blunders. Secondly, the Deputy National Security Advisor is going to be out of job in 3 weeks, so he is lobbying and offering his CV to the Indian lobby that I'll be available for a lucrative contract in the next few weeks, just like Mr. Zalmi Khalilzad, to bash Pakistan on a regular basis. The third aspect is whether it will have an impact on Pakistan's strategic capability. So that is the most important thing, and which is why I'm not worried that despite Pakistan having the peculiar distinction of being the most sanctioned US ally in history, none of these sanctions have affected Pakistan's political will and resolve not to compromise on its national security, and particularly the ultimate guarantee for regional peace and stability, which is our strategic program. Third off, since Pakistan's entire missile and nuclear program are based on domestic sources and manifestation of our own scientists and engineers' mastery over these technologies. So these sanctions will not affect our capability at all, because we are not importing anything from the US on which these technologies depend. And fourth and most important factor, which you also asked, is related to the strategic dynamic of South Asia. That is the most important, because I expect the incoming Trump administration to repair these flawed policies, because the US credibility as a responsible global power has been badly dented under Biden administration. Secondly, I think Pakistan has serious concerns about the long-term US commitment towards maintaining strategic stability and peace and security in this region, which requires that Pakistan takes a fair and balanced view towards the strategic capability of India and Pakistan, and is not too taken away by its overestimation of Indian commitment in counterbalancing China. It should not overestimate the Indian commitment to balance China, and not underestimate the strategic autonomy that India actually seeks, despite being in an alliance relationship with the US. And the last part, which is very important, is the technical reality. The advancement in Pakistan's missile program is primarily aimed at ensuring that despite the acquisition and advancement in the missile defense capability of India, the credibility of our minimum credible deterrence remains effective and remains a viable guarantee for peace, and prevents any irresponsible attempt from India to attack Pakistan. That is the only requirement. Pakistan, like I earlier pointed out, has no incentive to attack the US, and this only feeds the Indian bogey, which aims at undermining a very critical relationship between the world's largest superpower and the only nuclear power within the Muslim world. It is a precious relationship, it is multidimensional, and it is bilaterally useful for both these countries to avoid such blunders and maintain cordial, multidimensional and mutually respectable relationship for regional peace and security.
Right, absolutely. Bilal Sahab, I want your take on when we talk about these sanctions and when we put forward our stance in terms of how they're destabilizing for our own strategic approaches, and of course have impacts in the region as well, and how they're not based on credible evidence. What is the way forward in terms of actually putting up a stance legally, or in terms of any way forward as a country can? Can there be any ways in which the US can be approached on the matter? Can there be any ways in which any sort of evidence is demanded as to the rationale behind these sanctions, or is this something arbitrary that exists, and Pakistan will of course have to engage otherwise with the country?
Look, I believe this is all this all has been made fabricated by the Indian lobby sitting in the Washington, and they have created an environment to go against Pakistan in the last month of the sitting government. And once we talk of moving ahead from this state, I also believe, continuing from Muhammad Ali Saab, if you are feeding India on the promise that the India will stand tomorrow against the China, I think we are living in a fool's paradise. This is not going to happen. The only thing is India will be itself becoming a monster in times to come if you continue to unbalance the system. Pakistan and India has presently a very delicate balance. If you are pushing Pakistan out of this delicate balance, you are creating trouble in this part of the world. And mind it, this is a very crucial part of the world where the energy hub is there, and energy supplies of the global economy is running on the energy available close to Pakistani waters. So I am a naval officer, so I can always talk of the Indian naval the problems, Indian Navy and the Indian Ocean problems. So we need to understand this is not going to yield the desired results. Now coming to this, what we can do, I think we have a diplomatic options. We can approach the incoming government. But before that, we need to put our house in order, so we should have a united front. And I believe that all the right and left parties in Pakistan, they have a common agenda on this particular issue when we are taking on the such belligerent sanctions against a peaceful and stable Pakistani missile program, which is only for the specific purpose to safeguard our homeland. We do not have any aggressive designs against anybody. America is far away, and we are not talking of that. We are not foolish nation. We are rational people, and we just want to keep that balance between India and Pakistan. Our programs are all for India specific. If India moves towards peace one step, we can always move two steps towards them. But at present, Pakistan has the only option is engage United States, engage the other Western capitals. We must also diversify our. If technical support is required, we have to diversify from other sources. But I think blessing in disguise of this sanction is we will be moving to self-reliance more. That is the key to success for any stable country. And like in past, we were under a lot of U.S. sanctions, rather the most heavily allied partner of United States, but we managed to get even nuclear program successful. So this is also going to be success, whether it is sanctioned or not. Over to you.
Bilal, but my question remains in terms of what avenue exists in light of these sanctions. Is there nothing a country can do about it? A, and B, with reference to the evidence of its linkage with India, I want your understanding then on how that will factor in any sort of way forward or any sort of stance that we can put. Does that add to our argument in any way? Does that enable us to put forward a stance in which this can be questioned?
Basically, once the Western lobby or the Indian lobby, they create a picture in front of the U.S. government, they always say that Pakistan is developing some state-of-the-art technologies which can hamper or which can strike the United States mainland or their interests. I believe this is not going to happen. This is all a fabricated propaganda which has been put into order and motion in the last month. The 4 years of Biden administration were observing it in the last very month. Rather, few weeks are left now to change of guards, and they put the sanction on us. So, what I earlier told you, they are putting the minefields in front of the Trump administration. Said they have to walk in very cautiously because U.S. has lost that the impartiality factor once it is global stage. To become impartial and a real great power, they have to balance the relation with all countries, all parts of the world. And Pakistan is not a minor country. We have a 250 million people population, a big country, strategic location, nuclear power. People need to understand our strengths also. We are not a weak country. The only thing is we will not be we cannot be put under the carpet or we cannot be taken out of the equation. We are part of very much equation and we must be respected. That message should be given to our counterparts anywhere who is dealing on this issue.
What's your take on that? Because while, of course, there's a lot of geopolitical importance that Pakistan enjoys, and of course, it's a strategic country with reference to the equations that we're discussing also. But I want your take in terms of how much does that factor in when we engage within the region, or when we talk about these sanctions and the questions that it puts forward. Also, in terms of the ways that our own economic position also impacts any value or weightage that anything that we put forward gains, and whether or not that will also enable us to move forward.
Sana, be it economy or be it or defense capabilities, in terms that these sanctions being put on Pakistan, I think it all depends on the upcoming Trump administration. Right now, what we should do, we should only come up with the statements which we have already came up, and we have actually given a very right statement. And for now, we just need to stay quiet. We just need to sit back and relax and wait for the Trump administration comes into the office, and then talk to the Trump administration that these sanctions were put on Pakistan with the malified intention by the previous administration, number one, and number two, and there are facts which need to be checked. The information, office bearers of US, they are coming up with, like Pakistan has somehow achieved capability to even hit or target US mainland. I mean, this is beyond exaggeration. This is beyond exaggeration, I must say. And only the fools can, come up with these kind of statements.
Right.
And we have to put the facts on the table with the US. And I'm talking about the upcoming administration.
No,
the Trump
I completely
administration.
understand that, and I understand the perspective coming in from the US side. But my question was not only in particular with this particular incident and this time right now, but in terms of the ways that our stance or whatever we put forward in the international community or engage with the US in particular gets more weightage. We've dealt with this in the past as well. Why is it that despite whatever cooperation that we extend, despite the alliance that Pakistan has offered, and despite its strategic and geopolitical importance, we get to face all of this? So how do we actually tackle that where our value is increased and our stance is not negated?
Sana, it's highly unfortunate when it comes to Pak-US relations. I mean, since the day one, this relationship is like a, both of them, they don't want to divorce each other, and at the same time, they don't want to, live forever with each other. They keep on, parting ways and coming back again, parting ways and coming back again, but there is no divorce. I'm still hoping that there will be never a divorce from either side in this relationship. And when it comes to, of course, US having a goal in the region, that goal is entirely to engage China. When it comes to India, they, as I earlier mentioned, that they are billionaire. I said billionaire in terms of population. There are only 2 billionaires in the world, and both are neighboring each other. And when it comes to when it comes to the think tanks thinking about the region, how to engage with China, of course they come up with the India, because India is having a long-term dispute with China as well. And we know that China already claims 89,000 square kilometer in Arunachal Pradesh. When it comes to Eastern Ladakh, I mean, they already covered 38,000 square kilometer, and India did nothing about it. And after 18 rounds of talks, suddenly we saw that Indian media, after India signed everything, that okay, you can keep that land in Eastern Ladakh, and from now onwards peace would be restored, and we are not going to fight each other. And the kind of contract we had and treaty we had between us since 1975, in which we were not supposed to use guns against each other, we are going to pursue it once more. And suddenly the Indian media came up with all of the jubilations that we have been successful in 19th round of talks with China, and we have got what we wanted. What did you get? You simply surrendered. You simply surrendered in front of China. And when it comes to Pakistan, I mean, Sana, let's be very fair. I mean, earlier I heard, and it was very rightly put, that if somebody believes that India can challenge China, then they are definitely living in a fool's paradise. Why I say this? Because we have been seeing a tendency of India in terms of its being hegemonic towards its neighbors. When it came to Myanmar, they were hegemonic, nothing could be done against India. When it comes to Bangladesh, of course, against Bangladesh, they were hegemonic. Bangladesh didn't do anything because Hasina was sitting there. When it comes to other neighbors, I mean, they have been hegemonic to all of the neighbors, and none did nothing. And then they came towards Pakistan, and Pakistan slapped them in a way that they will be remembering it forever and ever. Reason being, Abhinandan knows very best how he was slapped in Pakistan. And when it comes to, of course, Pakistan's capability to defend itself, and not only defend itself, but of course, in a way, Pakistan can present India with the offensive defense as well. And I believe India knows it, and India is a country, it can never be accepted as a hegemonic towards Pakistan. I mean, forget about what it can do about China. So I think people who are sitting in the cozy think tanks of New York and Washington, they need to rethink about their policies, how they are pursuing in the region, and as you have earlier mentioned, the tried and tested ally like Pakistan. I mean, Pakistan, what does Pakistan needs from US? We only need our multipolarity not to be hindered. I mean, if we are multipolar towards China, towards other states, at the same time, I mean, we have been having brilliant relations, defense relations as well with when it comes to US. I mean, we were in a very good relation with the US during the Cold War. What did we get out of it? I mean, simply they one very fine day they thought, oh, we have to get out of it. Here we go. I mean, Hillary Clinton herself said it, that I mean, we shouldn't have left the way we left at that time. All we did was that here are the stingers and here are the mujahideens, and we handed them over to ISI and we told them, you take care of it, and we just ran away from there. Once again it happens here, and we have been, of course, outcrying about it, and we have been telling US, being an ally in war on terror as well, that you are leaving too soon, and if you have left, at least extend the presence in a way that you are part of it, still countering ISIS Khorasan, still countering TTP, still countering many other factions that are declared as terrorists by US themselves, and still US is not doing anything. And I believe when it comes to ISIS Khorasan, we shouldn't be forgetting that there was a time when Al-Qaeda was sitting in Afghanistan, and we knew that Al-Qaeda was training the terrorists and sending them into Europe, and Europe couldn't do anything about it at that time. Now ISIS Khorasan is just another Al-Qaeda. If tomorrow ISIS Khorasan starts training once more and sends these terrorists back again to West, doing 7/7s or 9/11s or God knows what would they do once more? If Pakistan is still fighting against ISIS Khorasan, still fighting against TTP, I mean, we can't see them being our ally anymore.
Right, and I understand that, and I think I want your opinion on that too, in terms of the way forward, in terms of what we understand from this dynamic then, and also in terms of this balance that Pakistan has to deal with reference to both China and the US. And while of course China is a very important partner to us and all-weather friend, there is of course importance in the relation of the US as well, and there is much that of course is viewed differently in relation to China, also with reference to this ballistic missile program. I want your take in terms of then what options do Pakistan have with reference to this particular dynamic, and how do we move forward from understanding the different stakes?
I think there are two aspects to your question, Sana. First is the geopolitical aspect and the transforming world order, which is a reality, which has worried the US, and the reactions you are saying from the outgoing Trump, the outgoing Biden administration and the incoming Trump administration are primarily influenced by the consideration to maintain a receding US-led world order that the US can no longer control. But there are different approaches which Trump and the Democrats are contemplating and considering. But I think a very useful and timeless lesson of history is for Washington, that it is Pakistan which 53 years ago brought China and the US together. It is Pakistan which ensured that China is isolated from Soviet Union, and that is what Pakistan contributed in maintaining not regional but global peace and security, and ensured that when Henry Kissinger was facilitated by Pakistan to a covert visit to Beijing, and that opened the gates for Beijing for the US. And again, Pakistan wants to remind the US that like Britain, like India, like so many other countries which have a delicate balance between China and the US, Pakistan also expects nothing less, nothing more. Pakistan's relationship with China is special because for the simple reason that China, despite contributing exceptionally to Pakistan's socio-economic development and progress, does not interfere in our domestic politics, and it respects our sovereignty and territorial integrity and does not demand anything in terms of our domestic politics. And that is why they command and enjoy exceptional respect in Islamabad and Pindi both. But when it comes to US, I think Pakistan's diplomatic, political and military leadership must assure and pacify the US that Pakistan has a special relationship with China, but it is primarily aimed at socio-economic development of Pakistan for regional connectivity and progress. It is not designed as an alliance to hurt or hit US regional or global interests. And let me also assure that China does not expect Pakistan to threaten the US. Our Chinese friends have always expected Pakistan to be a bridge of peace and stability between Beijing and Washington, like which we offered through the historic visit of Henry Kissinger in 1971. Again, when the world order is changing, Pakistan expects that, and again Pakistan believes that no one relationship, every relationship is different and unique. No single relationship is a substitute of another. China offers very important defense collaboration for our armed forces needs. China is offering exceptional investments in the form of CPEC in Pakistan and is committed to Pakistan's political stability and economic progress. However, US offers Pakistan its largest export market. Pakistan values US goodwill whenever we expect relief from the international financial institutions. Pakistan has a very vibrant and active diaspora in the US, which has made substantial and very significant contribution to the US progress, which Americans also appreciate and value, and the Pakistani diaspora in the US provide a bridge at the societal level, at the economic level, at the trade level, at the business level between Pakistani society and the US society. We value the US contribution to the international peace and security, and we expect the incoming Trump administration to repair these mistakes being made by the outgoing Biden administration and restore US prestige internationally as a responsible global power, which is committed to maintaining peace and stability in South Asia and is not overestimating Indian commitment against China, and it values Pakistan and Pakistanis contribution towards growth and progress of the US, and we expect our cooperation against the rising threat of terrorism, particularly vis-a-vis Afghanistan, will continue and grow, and with mutual interest and respect we will contribute both towards regional and global peace and security.
Right, absolutely. Bilal Sahab, are you still with us? Right, unfortunately we've lost touch with Bilal Sahab, and we're going to be concluding our segment here with reference to, of course, what is going on with regards to the US sanctions and the way forward that Pakistan will of course engage, but of course much needs to be changed in that direction. Faisal, I'll start with you with reference to our second topic, which focuses on what's going on in Kurram, and we've seen that the KP Apex Committee has sat down and spoken about this, and one of the important measures that it has decided to take is the removal of bunkers. And while of course that contributes to peace and stability in the region, I want your take first on this particular decision and the execution of this decision in terms of making sure this happens and ensuring that this will contribute to peace in the region.
Yes, and obviously when it comes to the situation of Kurram, of course we have been seeing that in recent weeks there was agitation out there, and that required to be of course looked after, and now I think this meeting has concluded in terms of a very positive sign coming out, and that is of course related to it has been part of it that if you remove the bunkers and remove the weapons, and after that the role will be played by the elders of tribal elders from the both sides, sides that have been of course creating that havoc out there. And I think this is the positive move, and this is how it should be. I believe in recent past weeks, we have been seeing the news which was coming from there. It was very saddening to see whatever happened out there, but at the same time it was required, it is timely, and I believe sooner it is done, it would be better for that region.
Right, absolutely. And I think your take on this in terms of how we've seen a history of conflict and violence in this agency, and we've of course seen that the warring tribes are something that the government and the security, of course, forces have to take into account. But there's also, of course, a lot of other issues such as that of these bunkers, but also in terms of weapons control. How exactly will then that be ensured, particularly from the KP government, and then of course with the KP government's cooperation with the federal government? Ali?
Oh, I think it's a complex issue, but I admire the prudent and careful approach of tactfully dealing with it rather than a very aggressive approach. Because there is a political dimension, there is an ideological dimension, and there is an external dimension as well, which is often forgotten. There is a lot of foreign funding and penetration of foreign agents and foreign terrorists who try to spew and instigate violence and harm the political stability and sectarian and instigate sectarian tensions. So that is something which I think the law enforcement agencies and intelligence organizations must keep an eye on, such individuals which who instigate violence and harm Pakistan's political stability. But another aspect which I think deserves appreciation is witnessing the federal and provincial leadership together, hand in hand, at making a collective effort aimed at forging cooperation and building a concerted, well considered approach to addressing this issue at both national and provincial level. Another aspect which I hope is given timely and adequate consideration at the provincial level is the long overdue need to improve their law enforcement agencies' capabilities and capacity, because federal government has invested more than 580 billion rupees towards improving the capacity of our law enforcement agencies in KPK, because you know very well that KPK is the front line province in Pakistan's effort to eradicate terrorism. It is the province which has suffered the most. So the people of KPK deserve peace, tranquility, investment and security like any other part of Pakistan. And it is very important for the provincial government to make it into a major priority, to devote its attention and resources more towards establishing peace, security and stability, improving the capacity of law enforcement agency rather than wasting time, effort and resources in challenging the federal government.
Right, absolutely. Thank you very much, Mohammad Ali Saab, for joining us and being part of the debate, and thank you, Faisal, for always being part of the discussion as well. And of course, with reference to whatever lies ahead, we of course hope to see cooperation and peace in the region, and we hope that that is the right step forward. That's all that we have from the debate today. We'll now see you on Monday.